There's something about the goodwill that you're giving when somebody clicks on a video. And if you break that will, they'll leave, they'll not watch the rest of the video, or they'll have suspicions about who you are and your intention.
That was Chris Do. Chris is an Emmy award-winning designer. His video on YouTube for how graphic designers price themselves went viral to over 4.5 million views. And we're going to talk about how.
Personal branding isn't so much about you trying to get customers, about you creating something. It's about you remembering who you are. I believe this, and I'll fight anybody on it. Being different is better than being better.
His unique take on personal branding caught the world by storm.
The reason why we pay that $2 premium is because that bottle of water is different. The reason why we might pay $300 for a pair of jeans is because it's different.
That road from graphic designer to thought leader was not an easy one.
But that didn't go well for me because I was like, I didn't get into this to be a shill for our own product. It feels somewhat disingenuous. So in 2014, when I'm 42 years old, I start making YouTube content. It like was a dagger in my heart, Brandon. I was like, the person, maybe outside of my mom who loves me the most, is saying, I want to do something different, man.
All right, let's get going. I'm excited to bring you our guest today, Chris Do. First off, Chris, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
My pleasure, Brandon. Happy to do this.
Well, the reason I'm excited is we get to dive into a couple of things that are close to my heart, which are running a creator business and personal branding. The show is all about that. So let's start there with personal branding. I'd love to hear from your mouth, like, what does that mean to you and why does it matter?
We understand what branding is, and I think we should begin there, and then we can understand the differences between branding and, say, personal branding, because it's a term that both terms are used a lot. I think misused more often than correctly used. It was a funny thing because I was at a real estate conference and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, Chris, I'm sorry, our people don't get branding." I'm like, "That's okay. People in branding don't get branding, so we're all in good company here. No judgment." I love Marty Neumeier's definition of brand, which is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So it's not what you say it is; it's what they say it is. Jeff Bezos goes on to say, "It's what people say about you when you're not in the room." As a company, we understand that. So corporations spend a lot of time, energy, money, and effort into developing influence over the perception and associations that people have with a particular brand. And there's a very specific test that we can run to see if you have a brand. So a product without a story is a commodity. So when you buy bags of kernels of corn, it doesn't really matter. It's going to sell for the lowest price as long as it meets a certain threshold of quality. So you can say that the strength of your brand is the premium that you're able to charge over the lowest price alternative. So when you buy a bottle of water at the supermarket, let's say it's 50 cents. Let's say that's the lowest price commodity. It's generic. It's generic yellow label water. And then if you're able to charge for the similar volume of liquid $2.50, that's the strength of your brand. You're able to command essentially a $2 premium over the lower cost alternative. And this is what brands fight for all the time. They want to be able to tell you a story to help you feel connected to the tribe, right, or the cause that they're after. And this is very important in our modern definition of self and identity. So we understand that, I think. We take this now to personal branding. So you take all the corporate concepts, you apply it to person and say, what do people associate with you? And it's very different now because you don't have a corporate shield to hide behind. There aren't teams of people advising you what you should and shouldn't do. There isn't a PR department, a legal department, a best practices department, a marketing department to say, well, it'd be better, Brandon, if you did this, not that. Because you would say, well, that's not me. But this is what's happening right now. When I look across social media and people are like, oh, we'll help you with personal branding, they're using that word in lieu of what they should really be saying, which is we help you develop sales funnels so you can get more clients. They don't even understand what branding is, let alone personal branding. You have to understand the person. And I believe this, and I'll fight anybody on it, which is personal branding isn't so much about you trying to get customers, about you creating something. It's about you remembering who you are, the 6 or 7-year-old that's inside of you that has learned how to blend in with people, to get along in polite society and company, to strip away all the unique, weird things about you just to fit in, because there's safety within the pack. There's safety in groups and numbers. And so what I try to help people to do is to let their inner weirdness out. And there's an expression that I heard recently that I really love, which is being different is better than being better. The reason why we pay that $2 premium is because that bottle of water is different. The reason why we might pay $300 for a pair of jeans is because it's different, not necessarily better.
In developing that our perception, I think what's complicated, I mean, businesses are simple. They have a product that they're trying to make, I think, more complicated than it is to create an affinity. But for you as a person, you're complicated. You are lots of things to lots of people. And I think that trips people up. So I'm curious, when you are thinking about whether it's for other people that you work with or for yourself, developing a perception that is true to who you are, but shows people a side of you. How do you help refine that into a message that's clear?
Okay. I think all of us, if we're hitting our optimal self, might be 90%-ish at the highest end, truly ourselves. The remaining 10% is how we adjust to fit in different groups. And I'll just describe it this way. I'm a father, so I'm not going to talk to my children or treat them the same way I would talk to a stranger I met on the street. Conversely, I'm not going to talk to my wife the same way I would on a stage. And it requires different ways or different modalities or tweaking of the core you. So that 10%, I think, is the outer shell in us selecting what it is that we want to show to people. And I think that's perfectly fine. And if you're doing that today, I think you're doing a great job. You don't need to talk to me. You don't need to learn anything. The real problem is we don't show up as the 90%. We show up as the 30% of our real selves and the persona that we fabricate around us. And I'll tell you what I mean. You notice when you go into professional circles, how people speak a certain way. They're very formal in their communication style. They're very careful not to use words that may trigger or get themselves canceled. And maybe deep in their heart, they want to let their hair down, not wear a suit and tie, but they don't. So there's a lot of repression, and it's been done so long that they think this is the real them. And we can see this most clearly visible on social media. When everybody looks a certain way and they're busy running filters on their face, literally filters to change their skin appearance, and they're very selectively showing you very small fragments of their life. I'm at the pool, I'm on vacation, I'm eating this great meal. But then if you were to turn the camera around and really see them for who they are, they have mental health issues. They're going through a really bad relationship. They have been bankrupt 3 times and they're barely keeping it together. But what they present to you is this wholly formed, integrated self that has got all their stuff together. And because we've been told, or we've assumed, this is how we must be in public to be accepted, to be liked, and not to be ridiculed. And so I think people are barely even 30% of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'd say on the other side of that, there's also people that aren't showing the best parts of themselves at all. Maybe they are socially, but maybe not professionally. Maybe the best parts of them in business or in whether they're working for someone else or for themselves, maybe that part is only being shown to their current clients who took a risk on their work. But now we have this content marketing and these places for people to start to show up. But what do you think is holding people back from taking advantage of some of those opportunities?
You're absolutely right, Brandon. Thanks for reminding me of this. So it works both ways. We're either holding back the negative or we're also holding back the positive because we are fearful of a couple of different things. Mostly it's because of how we've been socialized that we can't talk about our wins very much because it'll feel like you're being too braggadocious, you're too self-important, you're taking up too much space. And it is generally frowned upon by large groups of people in America and across Europe and Asia especially. And there's this thing about like tall poppy syndrome, getting too big for your boots or your britches. And so we celebrate this idea like being humble or humility. And so this goes against the grain. So if I achieve something, and I've been through this myself, let's say that my business hit a new all-time high in terms of revenue, and I was able to do, say, $5 million. I'm most likely not going to share that for fear of a couple of different things. One, oh, you just talk about yourself, or actually $5 million is not very much, or hey, people are going to steal my secrets, or who do you think you are? There's so much of that negative conversation that's going on that we repress that part. And so it's like a giant battle for us just to show up as ourselves. And if you are proud of what you do, you should say it. If you're not proud of things that you do, you should say that and say, I'm working through these things. It's the balance of these two things that I think form a more complete picture of who we are.
Was there like a specific moment in time where that clicked, or did something like there or was it a reaction? Like, so you put something out there and you got a reaction to it and you're like, oh, we got to do more of that.
It's both. There's a moment in time, I think we're like 6, 7 videos in, and it's a struggle for me to be on camera. I'm super awkward. And I'm asking my wife, because she's like, well, what are you doing? What is this YouTube thing you're doing? I said, what did you think? And she said to me, honey, I love you. Your videos are unwatchable. And it like was a dagger in my heart, Brandon. I was like, the person, maybe outside of my mom who loves me the most, is saying, I cannot watch your videos. And she said things I already knew. You're disorganized. You guys talk over each other. What is the point of this? And I'm like, oh, shoot. I didn't want to hear it from her, I have to be honest, but she was telling the truth. And so I kind of went over to my business partner, Jose, and I said, hey, I want to do something different, man. No more selling, no more pitching. Let's just teach. Why don't we work on our keynotes? Let's respect our audience's time and their energy. And we created our first hit, which was something about like brand identity and design, something like that. And I worked all night on this to 3 a.m. I put together a keynote presentation. I pulled examples from real life. I talked about principles, things I've read, and organized it. And we recorded this episode, and it started to take off immediately. So on a given day, our old videos would get like 50, 60 views per day, which I was really happy. I'm like, oh, 60 people showed up and watched this video. This is incredible. This video got 300, 400 views a day. So I knew already. So it's one of these things, you make one observation, you make an attempt, and your best attempt starts to work. I'm like, wow, how do we do this again and again? Well, guess what? We have to keep making more content just to teach and no pitching.
So what was happening at the same time as the YouTube content was starting to go, or before that even? Connect that to where you're showing up in real life and where you might be running workshops, speaking on stages. Did those parallel?
There's some overlap here. So I'm building a YouTube channel. This is like really my first attempt at social media as a human being, not as a company. And the first thing I do is tell all my students, hey, mean a lot if you guys subscribed or followed me. Why don't we just put in the syllabus, just step 1, follow me, and let's have the discussion online. So I was doing everything I could to grow the audience. They weren't really watching the content. It's all fine. But it's somewhere along the line, as I'm invited to do a keynote here and there, and I don't do that often. I'm not really loving public speaking. Somebody says, Chris, you're a design celebrity. Like, I am? And I think we had like 20,000 subscribers. It's like, not compared to these other people, this is nothing. I'm like, celebrity and me? No, I don't think so. That's somebody else. And I would just dismiss it. But eventually it starts to grow where these worlds start to overlap now, where the first way that people know me isn't for the work I do as a service provider in creating commercials and music videos, but it's through our content. And it starts to expand beyond our core demographic of creative people, like of designers. There'd be somebody who was like in line at a fast casual restaurant. It's like, I know you. How do I know you? I think I saw a video that you were talking about something about pricing on Facebook. Yeah, that's me.
How much are you speaking today? Like out there in public, whether it's running workshops and trainings and speaking in the real world?
If I said yes to all the opportunities for public speaking, I would probably be doing 1 or 2 a week. Unfortunately, I have to say no because I can't run a business. I'd have no time for myself because I'd be on the road all the time. So the most intense I ever got was last year during our European tour. We went to, I think, 8 different countries, did 13 workshops in a span of about 5 weeks. That was brutal. Literally every day was up in the air, land, prep for the workshop, do the workshop. And if it was a 1-day workshop, pack, next day up in the air, land, following day. It was brutal. So it can be quite busy. And it's something that is a privilege that's afforded to me because I've created so much content. I'm not complaining. It's a wonderful thing when you can drop into a city somewhere in the world and a small group of people show up to learn from you.
Yeah, I asked because I personally, I think people would, would pay a premium to see you in person. And obviously that's a choice. People, like some people really want speaking to be their only thing, or their primary thing. And I've also seen that some of the videos that have like started to continue to skyrocket on some of your channels tend to be the clips from you doing something in person, and how that's played out for you. So I was curious what the strategy is, or how you're approaching making those choices, whether you do something in person or just create it in your home studio, which would be easier.
This is going to be a confession, Brandon.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. I love teaching. I don't like making content.
Bum,
So
bum,
when
bum.
you're in my home studio right here, right? So I'm recording content, and I might prepare a deck, or the team will say, "Hey, we need you to speak about this." It's a drag. I procrastinate. I kick it down. Today's not a good day. Oh, the sun's not right, and I don't feel right today. Something's off. I'll just make 1,000 reasons. Oh, I need to I gotta go feed the cat. I don't know what it is. I gotta do something else other than making content. But you'll see me in my totality when I'm working with people in a live space, because I love real-time problem solving. So the reason why I think those videos outperform the videos of me just speaking to camera is because I'm working with real people. There's the reality of learning, which is it's a push and pull thing. I share a concept. I think it's obvious, but somebody's like, that doesn't work for me, or I don't like the way you said that. And then we have to work through the problem. That friction in the learning is a beautiful thing. And I like the heat, and I also like to have fun. And so I would tell my students back before I was making YouTube content, my form of teaching is full contact teaching. This is not light sparring. We will push and pull. I will push you to the edge of your creativity and beyond, because I think we artificially limit what we can do. And so I will call you out, not in a judging, humiliating way, but I'm like, how else can we, like, where else can we go with this? And let's unlock your thinking. Why are we limited to this perspective? What if we looked at the world through the eyes of a calculator? How will we tell that story? Your whole life would be squeezed and punched. But let's try and look at it like that versus as a 5'8" person walking around looking at things at eye level. Let's try and change literally the lens, the perspective. And so I push people. So in the workshops, we have funny moments, and I like that. So I try to bring in a little bit of comedy and what comedians refer to as crowd work, where somebody says something, and I'll give you an example, right? I asked somebody in one of my early workshops, how much do you charge? He goes like, what do you mean, like hourly? Yeah, I said, how do you charge? He goes, well, I give them my full rate. And I said, are you giving them a fool's rate? Because the rate is limiting your value to a time. You're tying value to time. We need to unbundle that. Of course, I get a little chuckle from the audience, and I like to do a little wordplay like that. But then people watching can feel that energy, like, oh, he's a little sassy. This guy, you got to watch your P's and Q's with him. And I think that's what they tune in for. There's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I forget the guy's name, but he's like, anyone? Bueller. I think that's how we look at teachers. It's like monotone, and they're just marching, and they don't really care to hear you think or talk. That's the opposite of the way that I want to teach.
It sounds to me like you started to build that audience first, and then we're like, what are we going to do to monetize this other than YouTube paying us? Is that kind of what it was like?
That is exactly what it's like. We built an audience, and we focused on teaching, so an audience would show up and feel like, yeah, I'm genuine. Like, I don't start selling you the minute you start seeing me. So there's a relationship that's being built, trust is being formed, and goodwill is being exchanged. This is very good. And then we announce something, and then we allow them to take the course pretty much for free. So it's the Mrs. Fields concept, where they take a great cookie and they break it up into little pieces and they hand them out. Very few people who can eat one cookie is like, that's all I want. I just wanted that little bite. They got to go back and have the rest of it. And that's how Mrs. Fields creates new customers and spurs sales. Give people a sample of the product, and it has to be a really good sample.
I'm curious about your thought leadership and your approach to it. Maybe you don't think about it like that when you're just sharing the things you know, but how do you come up with great ideas or the things that you want to talk about, like maybe in the beginning versus now, because maybe it's changed over time?
Well, in the beginning, you go with what you know. And if for me personally, there was all these moments when my former students would say, oh, I never thought of it that way. Well, that's a pretty good clue as to a piece of content that you would make. And a lot of what we do is kind of by accident before it becomes by design. So I was making all this design content thinking, well, that's what I've learned how to do. And I'm going to just share this with you. But the thing that starts to take off is the business content. One of my former students graduated, he's starting a company. He goes, Chris, I always respect how you talk about business and you tell us the war stories from the field. Can I get some help with figuring out how to do my business? And I said to him, you can pay me, or we can do this live on camera and you don't have to pay me. Being a new grad, he's like, I like the free option. So he comes into the studio. He just asks a bunch of questions. I don't know what he's going to ask, but it doesn't matter because I'll be able to figure it out. There's a whiteboard. I start drawing and writing. He's not even on camera and he's not even properly mic'd, but he'll ask a question. So that video starts doing well. And I'm like, maybe this is what I was meant to do. There are a lot of designers who make design content for other designers. I don't know that there are that many people who are making business content from designers from a perspective of I'm a creative as well, right? I'm sure there are a lot of business, sales, marketing people who are helping other people, but it's like by designers for designers, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. So that's really the clue. And so once you make that, you see in the comments, oh, this is striking a nerve. But then they have, of course, more questions. And you just take their questions and you say, that's really interesting to me. I'll explain that next and I'll just get into that.
So, no, thank you for sharing that. And what I'm thinking about as we're kind of coming towards the end here of our time together is I'm wondering on this journey in the personal branding space, like the stuff, obviously agency work, you're going to have some things that you run into, but I'm curious, as you were going through the teaching and creating online, building courses, YouTube videos, all the things, what was the thing that was really hard? Like something you ran into that you're like, this, I'll get past this, but right now this sucks. What was maybe some of the hard parts of the personal brand growth that you've experienced?
Okay. I think it can be hard for a lot of people. It's not so hard for me, but I can see how it impacts the lives of the people I care about. So my wife starts to feel like I'm kind of losing you to the internet. They're finding out too much about us. We're very private people, and it feels like I'm always available to answer their questions, but I'm not so available at home, so there's this struggle to kind of sort this out. And it starts to bleed into our real life because when we travel, we go on vacation, there's some weird random spots that I'll be in and somebody will like, hey, and then my family knows and they're super cool and supportive. But I think they can only handle so much of that when it's like, can we take a picture? Can I ask you 2 questions? And I try and tell people, look, I'm with my family, happy to take a picture. You want me to sign something? Happy to do that. And then we go on with our lives. At the beginning, it was like bemusement, and then there was a novelty to it. And then it was like, this is kind of annoying. So you go through that arc. And my kids, my wife, they all love and support me. So it's like, we see this lights up. This lights you up. This is why you do what you do, to hear from them, and they tell their stories. And when I relay those stories to them, there's some really like tear-jerking, pulling at heartstring stories where people have been able to do something with their lives. And it's just, to me, that's like my source of fuel. To know that some kid was like living at home making $20,000 a year, just saying, I live in that house right there in this amazing thoroughfare, and I did $100,000 last year because I just followed what you said. And they're just like beaming and they're like, what did I do for you? I said, you don't do anything. You just keep winning. That's what I care about. You keep applying and you keep winning.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's happy to be helping more people, but you don't want to be celebrity famous. I'll be introvert famous, not celebrity famous. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Any final thoughts for people who are out there interested in tackling this, to taking on, putting their personal brand out there, sharing them more of themselves with the world? Any final thoughts for them?
Yeah, I'll share a couple of different things. Number one is that action beats intention. This applies across everything. They're like, oh, I meant to pick you up at the airport. I meant to do the dishes. Well, I don't really care what you mean to do. Did you do it or didn't you do? The Yoda thing, like do or do not, there is no try. Just do it. And this is true when it comes to creating content. And I think it's so scary to make content because it seems like all of the people that you know and don't know are going to judge you, and it feels like the weight of the world. So let's shift the perspective from wanting to be an influencer or a thought leader from building your personal brand. Let's just say it's a form of public journaling. Journaling is important because we need to take inventory of the things that we think and that we know. So just chronicle the day to like reflect, and reflection and the ability to look at what has been done and how you process it is a very great form of self-education. So most people would not argue against journaling. Okay. Well, if you were just to take your journal and share that publicly for no one else but for you or some younger version of you, just do it for that and stay out of the results. Just, if you can't handle the heat, just post and just leave it there and move on. Maybe after 30, 60, 90 days of doing this, go back and look at some of the comments and just look at the comments that are constructive so that you get feedback for how to grow. Not because you have a punchable face. That doesn't really, there's nothing I can do about this. Or who do they think they are? I would never trust somebody wearing a cap. Like, okay, that's not constructive for me. But there are things like, hey, I was confused. Or what did you mean when you say this? Or did you know that this is the case and not what you said? Those are all constructive things to me. And they're really how we can grow. So we have to have a different relationship with critique. We can't look at it as tearing us down, but tools for us to build a stronger, more fortified house. So I look at it like that. And if you could do that, I think you'd do really well for yourself.
Action is everything. Well, I appreciate your time today, Chris. Thanks for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Brandon.
Brands on Brand.